live.
Oh my God, I feel like I should have peed beforehand. Do I have time to pee?
You're done. That's it. You've known that no time now.
Just hold it. You'll be
I will.
fine.
I don't need to right now, but I probably will in about
Hey, we are here live, 7:20 p.m. on the Thursday evening. Welcome to the CHiNWAG. We have Jimmy Harmsworth with us again, and Kristy Fuller, our guest speaker.
Hey, Kristy.
Producer, editor, Predator. Sounds kind of weird, that title, doesn't it? Predator. Nice work, Jimmy, on the little video you made for us with the little digs, the little Easter eggs.
Team projects. It's up in the cloud. It just happens every week. It makes my life very easy. Kristy, what's going on?
Oh, it's school holidays at the moment, so I am feeling very good because I just did an entire term of homeschooling a 7 and 9-year-old, and
how did that go?
It's great. Don't have a drinking problem.
I was gonna say.
Is that vodka? That's vodka.
Yeah. It's not apple juice, bro.
Yeah, no. I realised how little I know about anything. Struggled with grade 1 phonics. And, but super excelled. They had a Mandarin project where they had to make a music video of a Mandarin song. We rocked that project. Like, that was our week.
With all of the other projects I've seen you do, I am 90% sure that was perfection and 10% Kristy genius. It was just like, we're going to do this on the fly.
Pretty much.
So now I want to know, how did you and John meet? Because that's you guys. John actually introduced me to you.
That's right.
He did. I met John back in the days of RMI TV and Channel 31, where we were both keen students. He was doing a much more hands-on course of, you were doing video production, weren't you?
Yeah.
And I was doing media studies. And we kind of went to RMI TV, which we did like all our own like live shows and stuff. And he was originally a presenter / actor person on one of our things. He'd do these little sketches, like he died with a falafel in his hand, where he took a falafel into the toilet that his housemate had just done a big bog in and stumped it out. It was all very high class humour.
That was when we called the arts the real arts.
The real arts. Yes.
And then, over the years we did lots of different shows at RMI TV. And then when we graduated, I started a production company, and John and I continued to work together, and he did a lot of our editing. And then he ditched us to go work for Adobe.
Of course he did.
What do you want me to do about that? I do remember that day.
I can say that I met you in 2013 when John got me on board, and we were. I got introduced to your project, Heart and Soul, which was that ABC, or did you have a sale to the ABC at that point?
Yeah, so we had it sold before we started. Well, not before we started making it. That's actually a whole other story.
Yeah, I'll bet it is.
We had a lot of it shot before we had commitment, and we were just praying and hoping that it went through, because we had spent all this money. And then we're waiting for ABC to give the final sign off. And it was actually, I don't know if I should tell this story. It's a bad influence story, but I'll tell it anyway. So we were kind of like
going in for the close up.
Confession time.
Yeah.
So we'd been shooting this show, and we had won this big competition in Cannes, which was like the MIP Junior Kids Jury Awards.
Yeah.
And we'd put in this like cool like sci-fi action adventure show, and we'd also put in this like very more lower budget documentary thing, and we became a finalist for both projects. Now the sci-fi like drama show actually won the competition, which was great, and it kind of catapulted us from this company that kind of was unknown to like, oh, who are they and how come the kids all liked their show? And so we were like, we're the bomb. Walked into ABC and we're like, cool, this is the show that the kids want to see, because part of that competition was that the kids got to vote on from all around the world, like what show they wanted to see. And you just submitted like a trailer of what the show would be. And so we walked in going, this is the one that the kids want, so commission it. And they were like, we're not giving first-time producers like a $4 million budget. Bye-bye. And I was like, oh. And they're like, what else have you got on your slate? And I was like, we have this low budget documentary series about a girls band from Geelong that like travels the world playing all these amazing festivals. And they're like, that is more in the wheelhouse of realistic expectations.
Mhm.
And so basically they kind of gave us a shot and they're like, give us a full episode and then we'll see. And so we kept shooting and kept like cutting and we could never quite get it right. And they're like, it's really close, but we're not quite sure. And it was like, come on. And then we got to the point where the girls were in the band, were about to do this big international tour. And I had to commit to buying all the plane tickets for the crew and booking all the crew for this 2-week part of the show. Now, if I hadn't booked those things, we couldn't finish the show, but I still didn't have commitment from the broadcaster that we were doing the show. So it was like, do I risk this? Which was not really a question at the time because I didn't have the money to do that. And, you know, so it was about, I think at the time, like $40,000 worth of costs. That
Quick interjection. So did you finance this yourself or was it kind of?
No. So basically what happened is it got to that point and I was like, well, shit, we need this money. My husband turned around and he's like, we do have the money, just, you know, we had our home loan deposit sitting there.
Right,
I was like, oh, shit. So, yeah, I used that and then a week later ABC signed off and then it was all, that was a really hardcore week.
Yeah, I bet. And that's when I think I met you at that point.
Probably.
It was like, oh, Jesus, okay.
Yes.
And it's an amazing story because I'm just trying to come back to our core theme, which is the Predator thing, because that was really when I met you. That was what you were doing. You were kind of directing, instructing, and producing editors, as well as doing a lot of that editing work yourself. How did that progress? I mean, did you set out to be an editor or try to edit a lot of content, or you always going to say, oh, look, I'm a producer and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to direct stuff. And how did that evolve? That's what I'm kind of interested in.
Okay, well, there was this really annoying editor that worked for me. Let's just call him Jim.
Okay.
And he was very adamant about me learning how to at least do the bare basics of editing.
Yeah.
And he was also very ahead of the curve and was like, Final Cut's going to be dead in a few years. You should learn this Premiere thing. And so we bought a couple of Premiere licenses and he taught me the bare bones of editing. And that saved completely probably the first season of Heart and Soul, because obviously with your first show, you can't walk in and go, we've got a budget of this. They were like, here's this like sniff of money. If you make it, that's great. And if you deliver on time, we'll see what we can do about giving you another show. So basically with Heart and Soul, like it got to the point where like we had like this budget and we were just stretching it as far as we could, which was great because we had the community TV background. So we knew how to stretch $1. But when it came down to it, we had like hours upon hours of footage. And so I needed to jump in the editing chair as well. So we had, you know, like 4 different edit stations set up in our office and people at like the kitchen table, like cutting away, and I'd like do rough cuts as well. And that's kind of how that came to be, because it was just purely out of necessity. And it was so lucky that John had taught me to edit all those years ago.
And it was amazing too, because I remember walking into that environment and everybody was just like, it was like a good team, because you'd set up a bit of was it an Ethernet network that you had a server? So we're all, I mean, I walked in fresh off the plane from Hong Kong and I'd been working on a film in China and I was just like, what the hell's going on here? But it was great because everybody was kind of together and it was, you know, and you've got your instructions and you can make your calls and your edits, and then we've got 3 other editors, and you had a story editor, I think, as well, like a
as well. So so I had Ash, my director, who's also an editor, and then there was Linda, who actually Linda ended up learning to edit as well for season 2 because she was putting together some of the rough compilations of things. So it was kind of funny that we all ended up in that editing space. I mean, Hayley, who was our lead editor as well, that was like oh my God.
Yeah, she killed it. I remember Hayley was working like triple time on that because she had her eye across all of it, and it was an amazing amount of footage. I mean, I shot for a month in China and it was all kind of just, you know, documentary style, but this was next level. But the thing was, the coverage was there and she really knew what was going on. And I'm sure that you briefed her in heavily on that. When you talk about your exposure to editing, does that inform you on a lot of the producing tasks? Do you go, right, I've got a story, I know what I'm telling, I can sort of whittle away at the basics and make sure that we are on point. Is that something how does your process work in terms of that? I mean, do you think about, oh, well, I know that we shot X amount today, but there's going to be 30% of that I can use, and I can construct that. Is that how you sort of approach it?
Yeah, so like when we would shoot, we would kind of, because it was in Geelong, most of the shooting would take place. On the car ride home, we'd sit there and we'd take notes on like, okay, we captured this conversation, that will relate to like, remember when they were gossiping about that person, and
Right.
you know, so we'd take those notes and then we'd like kind of do like these rough kind of cut together of like, these scenes are going to be important later, and we just chuck them to the side, and then somebody had to sort through that later.
Yeah.
And occasionally, like I would do like, I'd be like, okay, this episode, it needs to hit this, this, and this. And I'd sit there and I'd put it in order. And obviously an episode goes like 26 minutes.
Yeah.
My episodes usually go for like 45 minutes to an hour. And I'm like, that's all the stuff that I want in this episode. Now make it run for 26 minutes. And then the editors will sit there and be like, and the amazing
we're going to cut this down.
they get it and they condense it into this 26 minutes. And sometimes when it's absolutely amazing and magnificent, I can't even tell what they cut out, which is great. Like I've got this editor, Mark Smithwick, that I've been working with for like years and years and years, and he just gets what I'm thinking. So I'll give him my like long edits, which just seem to get longer and longer, and he just cuts out all the crap, and I hardly even know what he's cut out. It's great.
And how do you cut that stuff together? What's your general tool?
So I just use like Premiere, and you know, originally I was using that what was that bit in Premiere that they used to have?
Prelude.
Is that's not still part of it, is it?
Yeah. It is. It's still there. It doesn't do much else than it did way back, but yeah, it still exists.
Yeah, I don't use that anymore. Sorry, I didn't realize that was still there.
It is like I don't use it either, but I mean, it does a lot of you can do your backups and stuff at the same time, which is great. You can ingest from cards and whatnot. But when you're cutting together those roughs, I mean, are you cutting them together and are you throwing markers in there, or are you just going, this is going to be my rough, bang, 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 this is what I want, and then just hand it on? Is that where you're going with it?
Usually I don't set the project up because according to Kaylee, I'm very bad at it. She doesn't like how I lay things out. So usually the assistant editors will set up the project the way they want it, and they'll make me timeline that I can feed into,
right.
And they're not supposed to touch anything.
Yeah. So they're giving you a framework to work in. So you're kind of stuck in that section of where they're happy to work with what they've set up, which I think is a good idea actually. Because if you are a predator, then as 100%, I'd say if you're working with a post-production team that have a specific way of setting up stuff, if they're feeding that back into your workflow where you're just, Kristy, use these 3 sequences. And, this is day 1, day 2, and day 3 roughs, and we're just going to have a bit of a compile and just play with those because we don't want you messing anything else up. That's actually a fantastic way of working because you are helping them by compiling the footage which you believe as the producer is important. It comes back to them and they're like, right, we know what we're working with, and our folder structure and integrity of media management is still there, and we're not scratching our heads and pulling our hair out, which I think is also a really important point to kind of pick up on, because you can have that meeting and it doesn't have to be a full day meeting before the production or anything like that. You can sit down with your editors for 20, 30 minutes and they're going to say, look, if you do this when you're out in the field, if you just use these sequences, or we're going to set up a project for every single day, follow our little instructions. We're going to put some markers in there. We're going to put pre-slated markers that are dated with each day of the production. Just put in what you want that's really important to us. As soon as that gets to post, you've saved, I reckon, 3-4 days of work right there. So smart.
Especially
it's a lot like
audio stuff, like, with Heart and Soul, we had sometimes 8 mics running at one time, and so you had all these audio tracks, and it's so you can so easily screw it up.
Yeah,
I can so easily screw it up.
Yeah,
so it's nice to have that
And you weren't working, and again, to use Heart and Soul as an example, it was a lot of DSLR and some broadcast, or was it all DSLR? How did that work?
Most of it was DSLR, and then like we had our audio guy would like give us the tracks, and so all that had to be sunk as well before we could like do
Right.
anything, which was a huge job for like the assistant editors to do.
Yeah.
Because
'Cause
often I wouldn't do it.
I remembered some of those moments where it was like, where is the audio for this? Where is the audio for that? Because there wasn't that time code sync where you could just chuck a reference in and smash it into the timeline and then go, well, we'll just do a multi-clip and hopefully the sync works. I think it was actually before multi-clip existed. This is 2013, which I'm thinking back to. So not sure if that was was actually part of it yet. But there was a lot of that. Where's day one after lunch audio? Track 3, and you're like, oh, okay, fair enough. But again, if you're organizing that and you're actually putting it in the sync, and let's say your audio guy is giving you the files as you go, you can drag them in. They don't have to be perfectly in time, because most editors are going to know that once they get it, they're okay, that's a bit out, we're going to need to fix that or turn those tracks on and off and eliminate all the background noise. But there was, I remember that there was a lot of audio on that program. And was that, did you find that hindered the post-production process, or were you, I'm just going to take it in the stride and hope that they work it out in the mix and we're good to go?
Yeah, I mean, it was tricky because obviously, like when you're going to a broadcaster, you have to have all the M&E tracks and it has to be like mixed properly. Like, so it was quite stressful, like having that, to make sure you didn't accidentally nudge something out of line. So that's where the locking the tracks, that was really handy. They would lock certain tracks so that I couldn't mess it up. It was it's super interesting. The worst part was the coming up and the coming up on the next episode and the previously ons, because you cut those obviously until the episode was done, but putting those in and everything had to run exactly 26 minutes.
Yeah.
00.00.
Yeah.
And like making those things run at the exact time or still getting exactly what you wanted without screwing with the rest of the edit, those bits were just...
Yeah, I feel you on that. Well, one more question I had was, how do you feel that your experience using the tools and editing stuff and just throwing stuff together on a timeline, did that enhance the way you communicated with your editorial team after you got back and had them on board? I mean, how did that change the communication that you had with them, as opposed to just being, say, a producer who just was like, oh, well, I just stood there and made sure everybody was in the right spot at the same time? How did that enhance the communication?
Well, I think because it was actually really like the difference between season 1 and season 2 is exactly that, because season 2 we had not a huge amount more money, but we had more money and we'd kind of already gone through that process. So it was kind of a different way of editing. We could actually just kind of almost, I'm trying to think of exactly how we did like season 2, but it was different in that way of like how we communicated, because we would be like, okay, so you're looking for this, this and this, and I could literally just pull things in. And obviously I got better as a editor.
Yeah.
I still never call myself an editor, but like I got better at pressing the buttons. And so it was different because we had different story people as well come in and like do stuff. Like I said, Linda actually came in and started doing some cutting as well, whereas that wasn't a thing in season 1 because she didn't know how to edit. So it kind of editing became everybody's job rather than just the editors, which was interesting.
And you felt like everybody was across material as well, so people would understand where things are and what material was in the bins and what was going to happen moving forward. And you could say, oh, we could have a discussion about the story and how it's going to progress now. It's just not somebody saying, well, I saw that clip before and I remember that because I was there, and I think that would work. Whereas everybody's now had their hands a little bit dirty, like they're not editing or anything, but they're certainly helping assemble or say pick clips. Exactly. I think that's really important in terms of that role, because that's where I see a Predator as being somebody that's, I don't know, I mean, it doesn't have to be anywhere near editorial, but they are across it enough to say, oh, well, I cut a sequence together and I think this is going to work. You just tighten it up or change it or throw some music underneath, and we've got some overlay from over there. Maybe have a look at that, see if that's going to work over the top. And then all of a sudden that dialogue is like, oh, great. Okay. Well, I think this is going to happen, and it happens quite quickly, as opposed to, well, there's a time code and I've got the clip, but I've washed the rushes, but I couldn't find the moment, and I don't know if it's going to work, but let's have a try. But then I don't actually know, and you're just like, oh my God, 3 days later, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we don't
Paper
have
edits.
anything yet.
Good old paper edits.
And I still get them. I still get paper edits. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I still get them.
Funnily enough, I then after, when was it? It wasn't year before last. I had the opportunity to go and work in the US for a bit, and I was working on a big documentary about some cults in North Carolina, which was awesome. And yeah, it was interesting going into that kind of environment. And the story team, everybody in the story team was also editing.
Yeah.
And like it was just a given that like everybody knew how to like at least put stuff together kind of thing. There was no such thing as paper edit, which was great to be able to walk into that. The only, aside was that they were doing it on Avid and I had no idea how to use it.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I'm with you there on that one. Hang up the phone.
I figured it out. Because because it's interesting, like what you put together as a story editor versus what you put together as an editor, and you could put those bare bones together and go, this is generally what this part should look like, and then they just beautiful.
Yeah. And so how did you find the experience of using, because I know it was early days of the Creative Cloud. John could probably fill me in because you would have set this system up on season 1 of Heart and Soul. How did that work? Did it integrate well? And this is a question for John actually. Did it integrate well to the production process?
The cloud first sharing project file?
Yeah. I'm keen because that was pretty much the year I moved 100% to CC. I dropped everything that I'd been doing. I said, I'm not doing Avid, I'm not doing Final Cut, I'm just doing Premiere. So 2011 was kind of 2012, 2013 was like, no, I'm 100%. I started here, God damn it, I'm moving back to the tools I like. So, I mean, in terms of that, because it was the DSLR revolution was already kind of been there, and now we're shooting shows on that. And your show was the first show that I'd seen fully done, almost a DSLR style, going to broadcast. How did that work? Did it feel good to be using it, or was it like a bit clunky, or how did it go?
We were pretty lucky because John kind of still helped us set a lot of that up. Like that's the beauty of like having John as an ex-editor and friend. Even though he works at Adobe now, like if something doesn't work, I love just flicking him a message on Facebook and go, why doesn't Adobe work today? And he'll just be like, click this, and this. And it's just like, I love having that direct line in, which I know not many people can have, and that's not fair. But
that's why
he did help us set up a lot of that stuff. So we'd have like Kaylee would make a copy of like all of the materials, and then we'd give the editors a hard drive, and then everybody would just share their stuff on the cloud. And it did actually, surprisingly, not surprising that Adobe worked, but back in that time period.
Yeah, that time, yeah.
It worked pretty well. Like it was pretty good.
Yeah, and me jumping onto that production, I was like, oh, you've got your servers, everything's pretty, labeled correctly. It seems to be moving through. It was for me a pretty seamless process. And to be honest, I'd never had any issues with it previously or moving forward from 2013 into the next couple of years, which was amazing because I heard a lot of horror stories, but I was like, I've never had one. And maybe your file management's terrible.
No,
well, I think you guys were fine.
She really, like, even second season, like, she came in, she's like, okay, now, every time you put something into the folders now, you're going to rename everything. And she gave me this renaming software that I had to, like, run all the files through.
Yeah.
So that everything. And so I had to do that as, like, a field producer as well on the show, like, bring it all in and go, like, and that's all renamed. Because there were a couple of times in season 1 where there was a clip that was the same name. That was bad.
Well, we've got a few questions we can come and loop back onto.
Let's do it.
Let's have a look here. So one of the questions here is to Kristy. Have you ever had clashes with editors who felt they knew best? Or was that you kind of went into it yourself there, but it seemed like a pretty good relationship there.
Yeah, honestly, most of the time my editors do know better. Mark and Ash, who are my two, main editors, so Ash Koch is my usually director, and Mark Smithwick, who does a lot of our editing. Honestly, it's very rare that we I can't even think of a time that we've come to heads, because almost always they will cut it together better than what I thought, and it's all good. They know
Good
that
collaboration and good working relationship there.
we've
Yeah.
been working together since like uni days, so it's
Yeah.
you know, you find the people that you like to work with and you stick with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
100%.
big ones like Spielberg and all these big filmmakers, they find their sort of niche of crew and they just keep the same crew for decades. So that's that shorthand of knowing.
RIP to throw out an RIP to Ron Cobb there, the most amazing visualist in my lifetime. Some of the stuff that I remember.
Big Back to the Future,
son.
Back to the Future.
He just
art
visualized
designer.
everything, bro.
Yeah,
Alien. He did
arts,
Alien, man.
Yeah.
He just did everything. Oh my god. But we've got some viewers from Malaysia. Hello to Malaysia. Big thumbs up.
You do. So another
Somebody
question that's
said,
in here.
is Jimmy wearing lip gloss? I don't know. I went for a bit of a walk today, and maybe I'm feeling a bit dry. I'm not sure. Maybe I put a little bit too much,
Don't be shy about
chapstick
lip
on.
gloss.
That's all right. I like my chapstick. Thank you.
You
very
know
much.
I bought that
Thanks
for you. It's the
noticing.
cherry flavour. I can tell from the tone. Kristy, there's a question here about what are the downsides to merging your role and having that overlap? I don't think there is a downside. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I don't think there is, because a lot of the time when you're trying to communicate like what you think you want, it's not until you see that it doesn't work that you realize that doesn't work. And so being able to like just shuffle things around and go, I think it'd look so great if we started with this and then this happened and then this happened, and then you sort those things out and you're like, oh, that's crap. Like, I think it's good to kind of like see those different combos. It's kind of like making your own Pulp Fiction, really. Like, you know, that movie doesn't work if you play it sequentially. It's only because they messed around with the editing timeline that it actually is a good movie.
Yeah, and I agree with that. One other thing I had in mind was, do you think as a Predator a lot about music that goes underneath the cuts that you're doing prior to it even going into post? Do you have an idea of how musically it's going to work? Yes,
and it's my least favorite bit, and I absolutely hate picking music. It is, we all, and Ash hates it as well, and Mark hates it as well. And if we could find a perfect music person that could always come in and go, do you know what would go good with that edit?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know a few good music editors, but, you know, then you have to pay them that day rate where you're like, geez, I don't think we've got the money for that. It'd be great to have a perfect reference music editor to have reference music that then you can throw at composers. But
I know this is going to sound really like trashy, but that's okay, because I admit I watch a lot of reality TV. But if you watch Selling Sunset on Netflix, the music editing on that is perfection. Like, whoever's sitting there picking the songs and the way that they cut to the songs.
It's like a music video, so it has that rhythmical, it takes you through. So if you're bored with the actual content, you're kept engaged by the music, right?
Never be bored by the content, because it's fabulous.
Right. I don't even know what you're talking about. So I just finished Mindhunter season 2, so I'm just like, I'm way behind.
It's really good.
All right, so what's it called again?
Selling Sunset.
All right.
Selling Sunset.
I'll give it 20 minutes. I'll see how we go.
Another question in here, which is actually one of our team, I think. Have you started using team projects at 1440? Is that have you crossed that bridge yet?
I don't know what. Should I know what that is, John?
There you go. That's your answer right there.
Okay,
you haven't started doing it, and you haven't contacted me about it, so I know that you haven't started doing it, because you would call me immediately.
What have we been doing this year? We've been at home. I haven't been able to shoot anything, to edit anything.
Rather good call. Good call.
That's fair.
Are you out shooting anything at the moment or not?
Not in our 5K bubble, no.
No, you've got 0, so you can't do. You haven't got a plan where you can go out and do shooting with a 2-man crew, or?
Not really, because Ash is outside my 5Ks, so that sucks. Mark's outside. They're both just as well. They're like this far outside my 5K mark.
Yeah.
But yeah, the shows that we're working on, they can't be done with just a little. We can't do it.
You can't do it.
Yeah, we just gotta wait.
So tell me about this. You hired one of my animator colleagues, Georgia Black, actually recently to do work on one of your your children's television shows, which I wasn't aware of. What was the show and how did that work? Was that shot in-house or was that a studio production?
It was a studio production. So we did the Stripey Sock Club for ABC Kids, which is like a preschool show about music, and we shot it at RMIT. It was really amazing actually, because we all went back to our roots and went back to RMIT University, and they've just recently put in a whole bunch of new studios. They've spent a fortune like upgrading the TV space, like compared to what we had when we were there. It was like
I remember those days. It was like Revolver.
And so now they've got this amazing like virtual set studio.
Wow.
And the first season of La La was shot all on green screen, and they had to composite like all the 3D animation in the background. Yeah. In the green screen studio, you can basically like put the set in live and they interact with it as if they're like in it.
Wow.
It is the most incredible technology. It's called like it uses the Unreal Game Engine.
The Unreal Game Engine. Yeah, I've heard about this. Yeah.
And then Reality is like the program that like does all the compositing. So the editing component was not huge. It was more so like just fixing up things, because obviously it's such new technology. It was like fixing up like little bits here where like the key didn't quite, go. So that's what we used Georgia for. She was helping like rekey some stuff that didn't quite, get it, because it was very new and very experimental basically.
Yeah. But how did you find when you're saying you're integrating live CGI with the talent performances? Was that because you'd put blocks and stuff that they'd sit on that the set would be under? So you had to pre-plan kind of a virtual set that the actual talent interact with, but then you've got your 3D overlay. So you have to coordinate that obviously. Mm-hmm. And then with post, then you're saying, well, cut out that bad take or, try and key something. But yeah, that's cool, because I've seen it. I haven't actually. You've played with it then. All right.
It's really fun because you can move the camera around. Like normally, if you're shooting like green screen, you've got to keep the camera still.
Yeah, static. Yeah.
Locked off. This you can move the camera through the world, and it's crazy. It's
that's
so
cool.
Yeah, right.
That's where a producer that's got a good grip on what the post pipeline looks like actually helps in the pre-production, and then when you're actually on principal photography as well. So that question about the downside of this, I don't see a downside at all.
Yeah,
all I see is up.
It's better communication, yeah.
Did you come and see us on set, John? I feel like
I don't think so.
Oh, because
no.
So basically we had Rob Nan literally
in
the
Robbie
studios. So he came and bought his whole edit suite set up, put it in the green room. And as we were like getting our rushes straight from the studio, it would go into his computer and he'd just start cutting it so that we could see like how it was going to make sure we were getting that coverage. That's cool. The most insane turnaround as well, because we basically needed to deliver to the network and we had like I think it was like 7-week turnaround. It was insane.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so Robbie was in there. How far would he get the edit, to finishing while he was there? Like 60%?
We were in the studio for 3.5 weeks, and then he did an additional 2 weeks after that to finish everything, and then we delivered. So
that's 6 weeks, pretty much.
Yeah. But 18 episodes, it's crazy.
How many? 18.
18 7-minute episodes.
Whoa.
Jeez. Yeah.
Well done. Completely. On full green screen using real, the real engine, whatever it's called. Jeez, that's impressive.
Pretty cool.
There's a question here about growing files. So when Rob was doing that, how was he getting the files into his system? Was it sort of coming in as it was being captured, or were they finished files that got transferred over? What was that process?
Yeah.
So the studio would capture both cameras in the studio plus the program feed, because you could actually switch it live if you wanted to have a play. Then it would also feed you what it was with just the green screen and what it was with the keyed version.
Unreal Engine,
so it would have all those streams going to a big hard drive in the RMIT, like big database of stuff. Like they have thousands of gig of space.
I think that's an EVS system.
Yes, that.
Yeah, that can do growing files, that system. It's pretty impressive. Yeah. Expensive, but impressive.
Oh, so expensive.
I've got one in my bedroom. Shut up.
And then Robbie would just drag them off of that onto the thing, or not Robbie, because we had some assistant editors as well. They'd drag it into the thing. They'd set up like the timelines and make sure everything was there for Rob, and then they'd switch it over to his computer. And yeah, everything at RMIT, like you literally can just plug like your computer into the wall. I know it's probably more complicated than this, but this is the producer's point. You just would plug your computer into the wall and you had access to like
the whole schmozzle of stuff that was going on. Yeah, that's exciting. I actually like that. I'd love to have been involved on that, but
I'm sorry.
that's all right.
Well, I know the tech crew and all those people at RMIT. I'm still, working for Adobe. They're one of our major customers as well. As the people that run it now, they're the same sort of people that were there when Kristy, you and I were at RMIT doing RMIT TV stuff.
There.
Yeah,
out there.
With like the studio tech, like when we were doing RMI TV shows, and now he's head of like all of it. And and Luke Raceback and his crew, they're just so cool. Like it was such a good fun project, but we're all going back there like 20 years later, and it was like nothing's changed. We're still the same age.
Actually, it's the full circle though. It's like the circle of life, you hold up the small line into the sky and say, we used to be here, and now we're older.
Well, and it was full circle as well, because we used a whole lot of, there's this work integrated learning stuff that they do at RMIT, and so we actually used a whole lot of students that are studying at RMIT on the La La Stripey Sock Club production. So it was just this, nice little karmic thing.
I love it.
Nice.
I think
and they all use Premiere, and they're all very familiar with it. That may or may not have had something to do with me.
And it's funny that the growing files question is it plays into a bit of marketing for our next week's guest.
It actually does.
Who is going to be talking about growing files, because we get to ingest live and edit live as files are being ingested live, and we get to play with those growing files.
Live. Didn't you say live enough?
I could say live all day. I'm live right now, buddy. Hey.
That's true. That's so true. So next week, we are actually starting to wrap up. We've got 4 more minutes left. We do know who's coming on next week. Next week, we've got Melbourne-based company Bluefish 444, who make in and out breakout cards, and they have a system that they wanted to share amongst the editors out there that is an affordable way to have multiple cameras being captured at the same time, and then you can start editing them while they're being captured. In broadcast, it's called growing files, where as they come in, you can cut them with like a 30-second delay, which is pretty cool. And that means you don't have to transfer files. They're literally coming in the system straight off the cameras. You've got just a small lag between getting what's happening live coming in, and you start cutting with it. Can be with multiple cameras, can be with one particular camera, but kind of opens up a whole multiple doors of possibilities. So Kristy, you might be interested in this one.
Yeah, I was going to say Kristy and Rob would have been all over that in the studio. It just would have been like the production would have been finished as you walked out the door for your 5 o'clock beer.
That'd be pretty
just having
cool.
a look for any final questions, and I'm thinking,
I'm not sure.
is there anything? Is there any nuggets that you can tell us, Kristy, that you would say, look, if you're going to do the producing role and you're going to do the editing role and become a predator, that just something that would just simple. This is really handy. This is what I found save time, and this is what helped people that I work with. How does that work? Have you got one?
Oh, geez, that's hard.
I'll put you on the spot.
It's learning little things along the way. Like what I used to like doing, which I know that my editors probably hated, is that when they would do like the fine cuts, I'd watch them. And it's amazing what you can learn from looking over someone's shoulder. I know it's annoying for the editor, but I learned like 90% of like what I know. Like I'd watch people do something and go like, oh, like, when you press, is it A that like highlights everything and then you move everything? Yeah. Like I used to like shift highlight everything to move everything. Like that was me. And then I'd see somebody do that and I'd be like, what did you just press? Oh my God, that just saved me like 700 hours.
Yeah. It's called osmosis. It's where something rubs
shortcuts. Shortcuts will become the absolute amazing moments of when people see that, and I've had those moments many times where people have gone, how the fuck did you do that?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'll press these 2 buttons together, and they're like, Because
How long? That's new, right? How long's that
You
been
can
there?
see the 30 hours that they've just wasted last week, and they're just like, I could have been at the pub at 5 o'clock. What are you telling me?
No. And I also didn't know that, like, if you held down shift, it cut all the lines. I used to sit there and cut them.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, oh
It's
Lord,
those
Kristy, I
little
feel so
nuggets
bad
of
now.
gold.
Yeah,
It's
How did
like-
I
it's-
not make sure you knew that?
I don't know.
That's
Thanks,
so
John.
bad.
Yeah, Jesus, John. Like, gamify it.
Wow.
Make people excited about it.
Yeah, to watch other people edit and then, like, go,
What did you do right then?
Yeah.
And here's the keyboard shortcuts panel, and here's how you can program your own shortcuts. So if you're a gamer and you really like using your, ZXC combination, let's just turn that into editing. It's amazing. It's amazing because the moment you open that into somebody's world, they're like, oh, okay, I don't have to press like 16 buttons before I get that thing done. It's amazing. Their brains melt. Well,
We're on time.
we're on time tonight. Kristy, amazing.
Thank you, Kristy. Thank you so much. It's been great. It's been a great chat. I don't think there was anything here that was necessarily missed. I think we covered plenty of different topics, and I'm ready to sink another few beers and call it a night.
For sure. Thanks for coming on, Kristy. It was good to catch up again. I haven't seen you since, I don't know, John's barbecue all ages ago. It feels like 10 years ago.
Lockdown.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So much younger then.
Yeah, we were.
What are you talking about? I age backwards.
Thanks, Benjamin Button. But very nice to see you, and thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Hope it was helpful.
It was.
It was. All right. Thanks, Kristy. Thanks, everybody. Let's catch you again
Thanks
next
for joining
week.
us. See you next week.
See you later.